Are Google SERPs getting their obituary written as we speak? Should your next therapist be chatbot? And are junior tech roles quietly disappearing? But also, what happens when one blackout throws a whole country into analog chaos? This is No Hacks. I'm your host, Sani, and this week I have experimentation heavyweights Erin Weigel and Lukas Vermeer joining me on the show. So strap in. The next 30 minutes might just rewrite how you search, work, and heal. Probably won't, but might. Let's dive in. Welcome back to No Hacks. I had you both separately. Now we are doing it on a joint episode. Every batch of episodes I rank by the derailability score. And I must say, this is a clear and absolute winner for 2025. I'm excited about this as much as you are, as much as anyone else who's listening to this is. And let me ask you how your life has been since the last time we talked, like a year ago on this podcast. What's changed?
The book is finished. My life is chaos. I'm becoming a plumber / electrician. That's something I'm looking forward to.
When's that book coming out?
It's not going to be a book. That's just going to be sloshing around in other people's shit and trying not to get electrocuted.
Lukas, what's up with you?
Same. I mean, apart from
the book and the plumbing, you know.
Yeah, minus the plumbing and the book and like all the other things that Erin mentioned is pretty much the same. Yeah.
That's good. Chaos is good, I guess. So I have the first question for you. And you know the Oscars, every time they have a montage about people they lost in the year before. So my question for you is, what are the things that we will have lost by the end of 2025 in your work life, digital life, whatever it is? Lukas, I want to ask you first.
Is it like a pre-mortem?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is a Christmas clip that No Hacks will share on socials. Yes, and I'm recording it in May.
Pre-mortem of things we will have lost a year from now.
7 months from now. Yep.
7 months. Oddly specific.
Yes.
I think I've noticed in my own behavior is like I search on the internet less and less and less. I just ask ChatGPT to search for me.
R.I.P. Google, or no? R.I.P. Google, or is that what you're saying?
I think what we'll lose, so personally, is like the time spent trying to find the right website that gives you the answer that you were looking for, and instead of just ask ChatGPT and it will look at 100 different pages and then tell you this is the page that you were looking for. So I think that's something we'll personally lose. As an industry, there's implications to that, which is like, are we still doing SEO at this point? Who are we SEOing for? Like, there's interesting consequences there.
Search result pages, like that's what's gone.
Yeah, I mean, I guess SERPs will still exist, but they're more like optimized for ChatGPT or like AI now.
Bragging to your boss that you got us to 7th position ranking for some shitty query, that's not going to exist. Hopefully. Okay.
Humans looking at SERPs, I think that's going to be...
Humans looking at... yes.
Is that specific enough?
Yeah.
What happens if I'm wrong?
If you're wrong, we'll figure it out.
Last this before I shared it.
We'll figure it out. You're not wrong. That's gone already. I think that's gone already. Erin, what's dying in 2025?
Are you testing our predictive powers? Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
You're making us pre-register?
I'm training a model.
So when I think about what's going to be gone in 7 months, I honestly don't think too much will have changed, but I'm also a weird person where it's just like, I don't like to predict the future. I just like to observe what's happening in that moment and then say, aha, that's what happened. That's what's happening. That's where we are now. I think if I was forced to pick something, like you're forcing me now, Sani.
I am. I am.
I would probably say in 7 months, we're probably going to lose even more job stability. I feel like there is a hostility towards people doing work that companies need to pay for that will just really erode people's job security. And at any moment, I feel like some boss somewhere will try to say we can probably replace that person with AI. But I think that will only really impact people working in tech at the moment, because when I talk to I think we're in a bubble. So we're seeing things very differently than most people. So if I think about like the more broad world, things are probably just going to remain pretty much the same. Like when I talk to people who are not in tech, they're like, Chat GP, what? Like sometimes I asked it to write me a song in the, I don't know, style of Shakespeare to the tune of MC Hammer beats or whatever. Like that's what they use Chat GPT for. They've used it like once, and it's mostly for funsies. But then for the rest of the time, it's like it is not really impacting their life, and it's not really being talked about with such intensity as I think we are getting in our little echo chamber. But I still think it will erode everybody's job security because it's just another.
I envy those people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I envy those people but that was us 2 years ago, wasn't it? When it came out, people in tech were excited about writing haiku and Shakespeare style poems and whatnot, and people with 6 fingers. It's 2 years away for them, right?
So Erin,
No.
your prediction is way more interesting than mine. Mine is boring. Yours is cool. So let's talk about yours. Didn't that trend already start before AI was on its, what is that, 4th hype cycle, I think?
Yeah. Accelerator.
Wasn't it something that started like in COVID years? We saw mass layoffs, then we saw the market being saturated with talent, then we saw that have trickle-down effects where there was more talent in the market, so there was less pay. Like, are you saying this will get worse? This will continue? Like,
I think it'll get worse. I think businesses think that people's salaries are paying more money than they want to pay. They will always think that. And I think they're probably using AI as an accelerator to lay people off, to drive wages down, to foster a sense of job insecurity, which means people will take whatever job they can for less pay. So I feel like it's just a continuation of a narrative that we've seen starting around like the beginning of COVID time. So if you can think about like the narratives that we've been hearing from corporations around that time, at first it was like, we'll take care of you, like we'll get through it. Everybody can work from home now. What do you need to be well? You know, all that kind of stuff. And then now it's really like, well, now we have to lay everybody off and but then they immediately wanted to show that they are growing. So then they started hiring people again, but at lower salaries. So yeah, so there's like these weird cycles where first you lay everybody off to show that you're being, I don't know, prudent with your costs. And then you have to prove that you're growing, which means you need to have more people. But I think in this case, instead of hiring more people, they're going to do it begrudgingly. And they're going to use AI as a way to say, well, we don't need more people. So the people that we have, we're going to make them do 5 times as much and say AI can fix that for you. But in reality, I don't think AI is capable of doing most people's jobs, or at least to the efficiency that they...
Absolutely not. I agree. I completely agree with that. Like I'm in that sense, I'm 100% anti-AI. I think the 4th hype cycle, I want to hear about the first 3 from you, Lukas, but the 4th hype cycle is more bullshit than reality. And there's going to be pushback, and there's going to be a lot of, you promised me it could do this. Look at it roll around in mud and not having no idea what it's doing. Again, because you're not using it properly, or because you're not setting it up properly, whatever it is, but the result is not. I mean, when I look at tools like, I'm not even going to say the name, but the vibe coding tools, the promise is anyone can pick one of these and create whatever they want. The reality is a senior developer can use them to work faster, significantly faster, without the help of a junior developer. And that's what they should be used. But the promise they're selling and they're raising based on is that we can pick a random person on the street and they'll build you an app in 5 minutes. And when the realization of that being bullshit becomes a reality, there will be a pushback. And I cannot wait for that pushback. In that specific example and all the other examples were just promise of anyone can do anything now. It's just not real.
We respond to you both, because this is making me
Please
think.
do.
It's good.
Please
That's why these conversations always derailed. A senior engineer working with AI can actually do this, right? And so the job being replaced isn't the senior engineer's job, it's the junior engineer's job.
Yep.
And I do think that AI has the capacity to take up some of the associate product manager job, or the junior engineer's job, or some of the lighter work under strict supervision. I think the challenge with that is if you sort of think that forward, then who is going to be the senior engineer 5 years from now?
Nobody. Yep.
Yeah.
Same people. Exactly.
The same people, yeah, but that I mean, that's going to run out at some point, right? They're going to retire.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend who is a senior web developer, and she told me that she hasn't heard of a junior being hired anywhere for like a year in any of the companies that she has friends in.
Yeah.
Nobody's hiring juniors because that's AI. And like you said, also an example that I used on a podcast recently is when the Portuguese and the Spanish and all the colonial powers, when they built the ships and took over the world, the rest of the world didn't catch up to them. Like they still have that advantage because they built the ship first.
Right.
And people who start using the AI this way, they're not going to invite more juniors to join them and be seniors tomorrow. The inequality is going to be horrific, and the consequences of that inequality are also going to be
Inequality is already there, man.
worse. I'm saying worse.
Similar to what Erin was saying before, like about like the job market changing and sort of it shifting from a suppliers to like demand driven, right? I think you're talking about the same thing. Like there's huge inequalities, and they will only get bigger.
It's getting that's when it's going to be
I
worse.
I think that started earlier, right? So when we all went home to work from home because there was COVID, who suffered the most? The juniors, because
Yep.
they learn by sitting next to a senior and looking at what the senior is doing, and they learn by emulating. If everyone's working from home, that requires a lot more time and attention to actually make that work. So I think initially when everyone went home, we all thought, yeah, it's great, especially for people like me, it's great. Like I get to hang out with my kids. I don't need to watch over anyone's shoulder to learn. But I think for the juniors, that was not great.
Well, what's interesting though too is people are pretty clever, and I think a lot of people have been learning new things from like YouTube. So I can imagine like the senior people kind of being replaced by tutorials on YouTube, so the juniors can kind of figure out how they can hack their way to learning more. That's just the thought.
For a sufficiently motivated junior, yes.
Oh yeah. For motivate one. For sure.
But not being able to find a job will
There are
motivate
actually
more people.
YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Not being able to find a job will motivate a lot of people more
Fair.
than like, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it
disagree
will.
more. Yeah.
It will. So YouTube becomes the senior that cares about juniors. That's so sad.
Workforces, maybe the seniors then start to say, if I know how to vibe code with these tools and I know the common missteps that people make or the hacks to make I know this is not hacks, but if they know the hacks to make it easier or better or the common, I don't know,
Yeah.
roadblocks that people face, then if they have these courses, I could imagine that either it's YouTube or online courses where they're not necessarily being mentored by seniors in an office, but they're learning through people on the internet actually using. I remember my brother once told me when I was first learning how to code and like design stuff, and he said, I asked him, hey, what book would be the best for me to get if I want to learn like how to build websites? Like want to learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And he just kind of looked at me. He's like, Erin, you don't learn how to make the internet with a book. You learn how to make the internet from the internet. He's like, you Google everything. And I was like, you learn to make the internet with the internet. I'm also kind of wondering, like, will we learn how to use AI through AI or by watching people use AI? Just random thought.
But there's multiple ways that we learn, right? I think you're touching on one, which is explicit instruction, right? So either watching a video or someone explicitly teaching you. That's one way that you learn new things. But there's more ways. There's also observing other people do the work is an important source of learning, and there's also actually doing, which is also an important source of learning. And I guess what my argument is that by not hiring juniors and those juniors sitting at home watching YouTube videos, they're missing out on both seeing other people do the work and having practical projects they can actually work on, right? Maybe they can come up with their own sort of toy project. But I learned how to build the internet by building for the internet. I didn't learn that from a book. I made websites, and I did that as a job as a junior. And I think that if you rob people from the opportunities to learn that way, because that's being replaced by AI, I do kind of wonder, like, how do we get seniors if there are no longer juniors, or there's no more space for that kind of learning to happen? And
We
I
get a
don't think
different
people's
breed of
responsibility is
seniors. We get people who, when they clock out of work, they say smash that like button instead of goodbye, like stuff like that, because that's what they learned from. But I don't like this future. I mean, learning from AI is what you said, Erin. Learning from the internet from books about the internet from books is just doesn't make sense. Learning about the future, and sadly or whatever, the future includes AI. Like there's no future without AI. I don't care how it's used. It's just it's not happening. Like the internet going away. It's not going away, for better or worse. Learning about it.
Let's not get into the dystopian. Like, we might not have. I was in Barcelona 2 weeks ago, and there was no electricity for an entire day. So I can sort of imagine the future with no technology.
I'll tell you a
At least no
story.
AI.
I'll tell you a story about that when I finish this thought, because I live in Portugal.
There too.
So
You
the
told
only
me.
way to learn is from AI. The only way to learn about AI is from AI. How to use it. Ask it how it wants to be used. Like literally that. It's better than listening to some random person who has one workflow they tried that kind of does what they wanted it to do. And like, trusting a random stranger on the internet is not the best case scenario. My story about the blackout. My flight took off 5 minutes before the blackout. Yes, my flight to Czech Republic to the conference took off 5 minutes before it happened. I was fine, obviously, like everything was fine, but I landed, I had 112 messages on WhatsApp, mostly from parents, groups from school. How are we going to get to school? Is everything okay? Is everybody safe? I'm scared, like all that stuff. And I'm just reading, and it's not on the news yet, and I have no idea what's happening, and I cannot reach anyone because the network is now down as well.
Yikes.
It was the weirdest day I can remember in my life. Everything is fine. Everything was fine in the end, but they had no water. They could not get the cars out of the garage to go for the kids. It's just insane thing that they say was one station in Granada or something that
Yeah.
called. They say that they don't know that for sure.
I don't really know yet.
They don't know yet. So I agree. Someone might plug out AI, whatever that means. Like it might just stop working, but for a day. It's not gonna happen forever. It's
So
just
you're not a
weird.
prepper then.
It's just weird. So what does doom prepping look in the age of AI look like? What do you get? You don't get the beans and stuff. You need what's the small computer? The Raspberry Pi with an LLM model on it, so you can ask it what
No,
you
you're
need to do.
man, you're overthinking this. You need water.
Of course I am.
You need water. You need some sort of med kit.
Yeah.
And you need food for enough days that you can build like sustainable agriculture in your backyard.
That's smart. So you are both known for being in experimentation space. You joined a big company on the same day. That's what I know about you. You were like the classmates at Booking.com. You started working. You were the two confused, not interns, but not as senior as you are today.
Lukas was not confused. He knew exactly what he was doing there.
Yes. So you left your mark on and you're still leaving your mark on experimentation space. So what is happening today in experimentation? Everything that's going on in 2025, and it's changing. What are the changes you can see realistically happen in the next 6 to 12 months in experimentation space, other than acquisitions of huge platforms for $220 million or whatever it was?
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
I don't get it. Like Google Optimize, there was such a butterfly effect of Google closing Optimize, shutting down Optimize, and it led to someone making $220 million. That's the way I choose to see it.
What's changing, Erin?
Maybe
But what do you feel is changing already, is what I mean. Yeah.
I think I'm just super grounded, extremely practical, because I'm struggling to get people to want to run an experiment. So if anything, I've seen the pendulum swing back where now there are business leaders like Brian Chesky and other people that are trying to emulate him to say, no, if I have conviction to do this, I'm just going to roll it out and it's going to be great. So I hear a lot of people talking more and more about conviction. There must be some new book out where people are like, if you believe in it, then you should do it and then the work. So I'm just trying to get people to agree to run an experiment because it's not actually that slow and it's not too expensive, and that you should just learn about how it's impacting the customer experience and businesses. So I think it's just more of the same right now. Like when I think about my day to day work, like maybe I'll use a ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever to help me rewrite something. But what I actually really like AI for, actually, let's go back to this, because people are thinking about how it's revolutionizing everything. And most use cases, I'm like, okay, cool, not so impressed. But one thing that I really like it for is like illustration stuff. There's a great platform called Recraft. And that to me is really interesting because you can feed it a specific illustration style that perhaps you've commissioned by an artist that reflects your brand. So instead of having to wait a couple of weeks and pay hundreds or thousands of pounds, dollars, or euros to get an illustration, we can just say, give me a person holding a flag, with a parade of dogs behind them. I don't know. You can just tell it what you want in this particular style. And I think that's a really great way to save time and create stuff like that. So again, the illustrator's job would then not necessarily be to create all of the artifacts, but it would be to feed the style, like to create the style and the actual artistic guidance behind what the AI then uses. So that's one way that I think I have seen things change. But from like my day-to-day activities, I'm just like, using ChatGPT that maybe help me write something better. But even then, I'm not super impressed because it messes up my use of M dashes, and that really upsets me. Yeah.
It's interesting. One thing I've noticed that these LLMs and in general tend to be really bad at is disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
They tend to be great at agreeing with you all the time.
Yeah. They're great at agreeing. Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right. That is a very smart suggestion you just made. Yes, you are so smart.
Every time.
Every time. And so like this idea that founders, that we touched on this earlier, right? So this idea that they will use AI more, and they also believe they should have more conviction. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Because if they have conviction and they're going to ask AI is going to tell them that they're right every single time.
Yep. Yeah. That's not the cliff. Just keep walking. Keep
walking. Keep going. Yeah. My favorite is still like this example that came out, I think it was a year ago. Someone said that you ask ChatGPT or whomever how many R's appear in the word strawberry, and it will say 2.
Yeah.
OpenAI actually fixed that. You can ask it and it will say 3. And then my favorite thing to do is to disagree and say, no, actually it's 2. You got that wrong. Please count again. And depending on which model you use, sometimes it'll go like, oh, I'm so sorry. You're absolutely right. Yes, I counted again and it's actually 2.
And then you say, no, it's 3. And
they go, no, it's 4.
Yeah.
It will agree again.
I have a conspiracy theory about the strawberry thing. So when that thing was happening, that was about a year ago when that thing was happening, right? And that's when ChatGPT 4.0, that was the strawberry project, or something else was called the strawberry project, I think.
Yes.
They launched it with Sam Altman was holding a strawberry or picking strawberries when they launched it on Twitter. That was the photo they used. I think they either used the word strawberry to just drown all the noise talking about how shitty ChatGPT is, just so you cannot find the 3 R's, or they used all the buzz around the look how stupid it is to lift the launch of the project. So whatever it was, I'm sure there's a link. Like those are not 2 random events. That's my theory.
I tried a few weeks ago, and it threw the dictionary at me, which was pretty interesting. So it got the answer correctly, and then when I said no, it's 2, it said no. I actually looked at the Merriam-Webster. Here's a link. If you have any other definitions of that word, please let me know. So it got very flippant. So
there's
hope. There's hope.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, us humans, a bat and a ball together is $1.10. The bat is $1 more expensive than the ball. How much is the ball?
It's easy. Don't trick us with that. I don't know which one, but it's 105 or 5. Like whatever. Like that's easy.
The intuitive answer for most humans.
You're right.
Wrong. It's 5 cents.
You're right. Yeah, but where do you get where do you get your bats and balls? Like that's a
I think it's a
that's
very
cheap.
cheap shop. It's a very
That's
old
a
example, actually.
super.
That's why
It's a
it's not
dollar
cheap.
store.
Yeah.
It's a dollar store. Yeah,
Thrift store, maybe.
that doesn't exist. One example of ChatGPT agreeing with whatever people say. There was, I don't know if it's true, but it was viral for a minute online. Someone asked it about stopping medications they were taking and trying alternative solutions, and the response, there was a screenshot, so it must be true. Obviously, it said that's such a brave thing of you to try to explore different solutions. Like, it's insane. And I think after that they rolled back and killed that feature.
I was just going to say, I was trying out different things the other day. I was playing with, I think it was Perplexity. And I had read that the kids these days, those Gen Zers, were using, I mean, they wear like wide leg pants now, which is great because that's what I was doing in high school. So I was just like, maybe they have more good ideas, like what I used to do when I was a child. So I read in an article that Gen Z has been using Gen AI as kind of like either a therapist or a life coach or to help them think through things in their life. And I was making a decision about something. I forget what it was, but I was like, I have this really challenging thing that I need to decide, and there seems to be no good way forward, yada, yada, yada. And I laid out what some of the options are, asking like, what other options might there be? Can you help me think through this? What might you recommend, or unthought about consequences, yada, yada, yada. And it was giving me these little prompts to say like, reading the input, validating the emotion, and thinking through the prompts. And then it gave me this disgusting, almost offensive, like, I hear you. Must be a challenging situation. And I was like, wait, it's like it's telling me reading this, validating the reader's like what the emotions. I'm thinking, and I just was like incensed. I was like, this is so gross. Like, you're telling me methodically what you're going to do. Reply with empathy and practical tips. And
You can see the inside.
yeah, I could see the inside. It was just like pulsing what it was doing. And then I was just like, okay, so now it is telling me, validating my emotions. This is a really tough situation that you're in. No.
Yeah.
So sorry to hear that there is no clear path for. And I was like, you just regurgitated everything that I told you that I needed help with, but in a really condescending way that I never will ask it anything again. I'll just be like, how
Just
many?
imagine therapy. And again, male Balkans, I don't know what it is. Like most other male humans from Balkans, I don't know what it is. But imagine therapy where you're talking to the therapist and they're just loudly saying, childhood issues, daddy issues, fucked up at school, bullied all the time, was a bully. As you're saying, and then when you're done, I understand what you're saying. It must be a challenging situation because that's the human equivalent of that bullshit.
That is,
but
exactly
the problem is
identifying daddy issues. Validating emotions.
That's so messed up. The problem is, it should not be used like that. And if it can be, humans will use it that way because why not? Because there's a stupid way to use something. Let's do it. But the company should not allow. OpenAI, Perplexity, they should not allow this to happen.
Not allow what to
happen.
They
should be.
Sorry, not allow what to happen.
It being used for therapy.
Why not?
You should not.
There are specific startups that are out there now made for replacing therapists to allow people to converse and use them as friends.
I'm surprised to hear you say that. Why can't you use it for that? What's wrong with that?
Because who's guardrailing that? Who's making sure? I mean, at least a therapist, if anyone can be a therapist, I would understand. Like, you can pick some drunk from the street and say, you're not a therapist. Talk to these 10 people today. Right. I get that. But a therapist is someone who has to get certified and has a degree and whatnot. Yes. And AI can be trained to act like a therapist. But what if something goes wrong and it has a response that's not something that was planned? Like, do you trust that system?
But that's true of anything, though, right? Like, if people ask ChatGPT medical problems, if people ask ChatGPT...
No, that too. Yes.
It's true of the internet at large. Right now, they're asking Google, and Google's giving them 10 websites.
All roads lead to cancer, Lucas. That's all you need to know if you ever Google anything about medical problems.
Hey, Dr. House could have told you that before Google.
No, sarcoidosis.
It's lupus. It's lupus or cancer on Dr. House, always.
Sarcoidosis.
There's nothing else.
It's definitely sarcoidosis.
So I don't like that. I really don't like that. I love AI automating the boring things that I don't care about. I love that, but replacing the human connection is what scares me, what really freaks me out. I don't want
That's
that
what
to
the kids
happen.
are doing these days, Sani, just so you know. And it's a
So
terrible
glad
idea.
I'm not a kid. It's a bad idea, yeah.
It's
It's a
very
really because I mean let's go back to the big elections somewhere in North America in 2016 when Cambridge Analytica and social media influenced the results and all that. You know how easy that is now with ChatGPT? You don't even have to pay for the ads. Like if someone at one of those companies decided, I want to push people 12% to the right, like, and I have a month to do that, they could do that. I'm not saying they're doing it, but it's easier now than it ever was before. And I really don't like that. Go for facts, not for opinions.
What's the alternative though? Because
There's no alternative.
therapist, right? So I think for the kid, let's call them kids these days. I don't know who was actually doing this, so like it's convenient.
But let's keep calling them
Use, like,
kids
this
these days.
hypothetical
Yes.
person, but like I don't think for 100% of those people the alternative is going to a registered therapist. I would agree that would probably be better, but I
Yeah.
don't think that's what most people will do. I think most people will either not talk about it all, ask Google and look on Reddit, or ask a random friend that like has time.
But that's better. Asking a
All
family
of it
member
better?
or friend. No. Family member or friend. Asking a
Family
human.
member or friend.
Yes. Going to Reddit is.
Not everyone has a family member or friend they can trust. I would
But
say.
most people do. And they still go to ChatGPT. And that will happen more and more and more and more. I, I don't have a solution. Like, no one has a solution. The way I see it. I don't.
Yeah, I do. I have that
don't
house
know.
in France that's off grid. That's my solution.
I envy that.
I always have a backup.
But you're right. Yeah. That's a good solution. So let's kill this. Not AI. Sadly, we cannot kill AI, but let's kill this part of the podcast. Erin, generative AI and how it influences design specifically and UX design. You talked about illustrations, and then everyone except for the illustrator benefits from that. But UX design, there's a lot of tools right now that they can V0 whatever they can give you a full design of an app. Is that a good thing, a great thing, or a bad thing?
The stuff I've seen, I'm not impressed with. Like it comes back just very bland, very generic. And I also don't see, usually when you see a good designer's work, you can tell what kind of critical thinking has gone into all of their decisions, like framing techniques, content flow, how the visuals reinforce the message they're trying to convey, how they lean on the branding elements to make it, tie in with the rest of the vibe that the brand try to give, right? But like when I see these, generated landing pages or whatever, they're missing that critical thinking, like the actual the magic that a good designer. So it's like a very bad designer, but somebody who's proficient in a tool, but that doesn't have all the critical thinking and high touch craft skills that a designer would have. Maybe you can.
And the bad designer is even if it kind of looks good, it's not good design still, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's like beautifully, that might from a UI perspective look great to most people. But one of the things I've noticed immediately is that it often doesn't pay attention to any kind of accessibility standards. So like color combinations are really not okay. So many not great designers also pay no attention to accessibility. So it's kind of like, oh, great. Now, instead of telling a junior designer how to improve accessibility, I have to just say that to the machine or whatever. Hopefully we'll learn. But it still seems like work to me. It seems like more work to me. We'll have to tell a machine how to do it right than for me to just do it right the first time, if that makes sense.
But do you think that's a problem that can be solved in the future?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I think the more let's say if I was training some kind of a tool, and it kind of got to know what kind of critique I would give to it, to say, no, this copy needs to be more persuasive, less descriptive, more persuasive, or it needs to be more concrete metaphors as opposed to more whimsical metaphors for the imagery, or use fewer icons and more illustrate. You know what I mean? Like you can train it to, I guess, to learn the style that you want or to mimic things, but I don't know, it just feels like it would take a lot of time and then you would still have to edit it.
Yeah, and it always mimics. Like that's the thing that I really, really hate. It always takes the averages and just mimics something that matches, I guess, your vibe. Some vibe coding, vibe mark.
We're back to the discussion about juniors and seniors, right? So I guess the
That's
question
the
is,
theme. That's
like,
2025 theme.
is this
Yeah.
similar to working with a junior designer? Is it worse? Is it better? Like,
Are you?
because you would have to give similar guidance, right? If you get someone off the street to do design or to help you with design, you would have to give similar feedback.
Yeah. It's like the same conversation all over again. I thought that AI should solve those problems, right? It should know how to do better than an average designer. But when you
Right.
get it and you're just like, okay, great. So I'm still starting with the same baseline, which I'm not impressed with. Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me,
Interesting.
like,
So I've used it mostly for coding and for writing, not for design.
and then
And my experience is a little bit different in the sense that I think it's often a relatively good start. So it's comparable to like a junior dev who
Okay.
can sort of like bring up some scaffolding and then is really quick to come up with the scaffolding. So it's a very fast start.
yeah.
But then it's often not very responsive to feedback. So there'll be a bug and you'll be like, hey, there's a bug over like online, so many, there's a bug and you need to fix this and that way. And then it stops working.
Yeah.
So it's like almost magical in its first inception. We're like, wow, you made that really quickly. Now change this tiny little thing. And then it completely falls flat.
Yeah.
And like in my career, I've had the same thing with actual junior developers. To be fair, like that's not unique to AI, but I think that is to me, I'm not so much worried that the initial version, like with very little context, it doesn't come up with a good first version. That to me, that's fine as long as we can then iterate and sort of like in collaboration come to something that I like. But that requires it to be far more responsive than I've seen so far.
That's what I dislike about the vibe coding tools, the ones that exist today. They will give you magic in 5 minutes, and they
Right.
will give you hell from 6 minutes. And
Right?
after.
Yeah. Then if you want to make tiny
That's
changes,
just how it is. That's the state of those tools. If you want to fix a bug on this page, it might fix it. Usually not. It's going to keep doing the same bug. And if it fixes it, there's a bug here.
Right.
That was caused by fixing the. And again, juniors will probably do that as well.
I'm noticing it's a different kind of mistake. I think like smart junior would be able to figure this one out because they're
Yeah.
often very logical. At least in the coding world, they're very logical mistakes. There are bugs where if you point at the line and you say this is the bug, then a junior would be able to reason through and go, here's how I fixed it.
Right.
Where a junior would struggle more is sort of the larger picture, like what is this code supposed to do, and what direction is and that's where you guys. So maybe this is more about like we need to learn how to coach differently. I don't know. Honestly.
Probably.
I'm thinking about this again from a different perspective because again, we're thinking about it from we've been doing our craft for quite some time, so we know what good looks like and we know what the common mistakes are. So I'm like programmed to find everything that's wrong with stuff. But if we think about it from the perspective of somebody who's never built a website or never coded a website before, all of a sudden they're in the arena now, right? Where they were not able to build the first wireframe or the first V1 of a landing page. They now have access to V1, but they probably don't know what good looks like. So they'll just keep V1 where it is, which then is, I mean, we all know that AI is going to make the quality of stuff worse in general because people are going to say, well, I can do this myself now, but then they don't know what good looks like. And then they don't think that they should hire somebody to help make it better after that point. But that was just a thought that I was having. So I think that's maybe why everybody's so excited about it because they couldn't do this stuff by themselves previously. And now they can ask a machine to do it. And then they get the very first iteration.
Well, that looks good enough to them.
Yeah.
So I remember very similar arguments about, TV used to be something that only like very special people could do. And now anyone can start a podcast. And like, there's so much.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stop there. I don't want to offend. But, there's not necessarily inherently something bad about sort of lowering the bar to enter.
I agree.
Right?
No, yeah,
The
I
same
wasn't
thing.
saying that
Same thing. Publishing on the internet. People said, "Oh, anyone can write a blog post." Like you're much better off reading books. Those are far more reliable, aren't they, Erin? And so I think like the idea that like opening this up to the masses will necessarily lead to a degrade, and I think it will lead to more bad content out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's Sunny's biggest concern, that there will be a lot of bad
Noise. There's just shitty noise.
Noise.
Yes. Yes.
But at the
yes.
same time, it might actually lead to more good stuff too. Like it will just lead to more stuff in general.
The percentage of good stuff in relation to the
Good
whole
stuff will go down.
is going down and
Yes.
fast.
Yes.
That scares me.
Yeah, but I mean that this is like similar to like if you compare all the books written 100 years ago and
Yeah.
now all the books written plus everything that people publish on Facebook and on Reddit, then yes,
That's true. Yeah.
like percentage of quality stuff has probably gone down, I would say.
An
There's
example I
still
heard.
more good stuff out there.
An example I heard this morning was 20 years ago. It was find me on the streets of Vatican. Like you have a date to find this. Find Wally in Vatican. 10 years ago it was Germany. Now it's China. And it's getting crazier and crazier because not finding people, but finding any content or any tool that you want, because there's so much more stuff happening that just being that Wally and being found, it look at Erin dressed like Wally. I just noticed that.
I'm always
so cool.
like,
So we are going full circle. Let's get back all the way to where I started with.
It's called
I have been
callbacks because
using-
we're wrapping up the episode.
Yeah,
Yes.
what I have been using AI for personally most in the past is to find content.
Okay.
Rather than spending 10 minutes myself Googling, I will say, this is approximately what I'm looking for. Can you please let's Google your ass off and try to find some good stuff for me? And then I read it. So maybe this problem is caused by AI, and maybe it can also be solved by AI.
Maybe. That's two maybes, actually, not one.
I put two million in there.
Two
yeah.
maybes. So you have two maybes as the closing word. Erin, what do you want to say to wrap up this episode?
I'm not going to try to predict the future. I'm just interested in seeing what happens. And I'm going to try stuff out. And I'm going to be offended by ChatGPT occasionally, I'm sure. But I'm just I'm just along for the ride, man. And if things go south,
Yes.
you can find me in France.
Thank you for being on the podcast. Always a pleasure to talk to you both, and I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you, man. See ya.